Yeah, 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 oh, yeah, 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 oh, yeah, 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 oh, yeah, 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 oh, yeah. For those who are new, first time out, this is Nick from Ulta Beauty. He's one of the senior lead guys dealing with threat intelligence. So we definitely is an honor to have him on board to actually share with us today. So Nick, is all yours.
All right, so tonight I'm going to run this a little bit different than, well, you might be actually familiar with this, getting some presentations from OTHA, but today is completely informal. The presentation, obviously I do have content to give you guys, and we'll go through a lot of stuff, but the intention here, you know, if you guys want to stop me at any point, just jump in. You are not going to break the presentation. There's no time limit, nothing like that. I've given this particular presentation probably close to 15, 16 times. So I can kind of do it from the back of my hand, or, you know, pick up from where we left off and skip stuff. If we talk about it early, that's perfectly fine. But I want you guys to know I would like some interaction. It will also help you too in going through some of what we call open source intelligence. So I'm going to kind of approach this from a 35,000 foot view. Speaking with OTHA, I know some of you, some of the people on this call might be, you know, either not in the industry currently or not completely familiar with the term OSINT. So this presentation is kind of to bring you a little bit in, kind of like dip the toes or your foot in. I plan on doing some other creationary stuff with like sock puppets and really diving into open source too. I also left some time at the end of this presentation to do some labs. So if you guys have the ability and you guys have a computer in front of you, just want to let you guys know, grab one. Everything we do is going to be in the clear web. We're not going to be searching the deeper dark web today. We can potentially do that, but I can tell you from dealing with, I'm also part of a dark web working group. It's not as safe to kind of surf and go through a lot of the stuff on the dark web, simply because you have to really have what we call OPSEC, or operational security. And I'm very hesitant giving, you know, the keys are there, but I don't want to guide you to the keys, put you in the car, and then hand you your 15 beers before you guys kind of drive off and do, you know, crash into a wall, which from the dark web, it's more so exposing who you are, and we want to try and minimize that. So without further ado, we're going to look at several things today. The first thing is safe searching. Even though we're talking about the clear web, there is some operational security stuff we should talk about. Google hacking, or what's also known as Google dorking. I know OTHA covered this a little bit in his first talk, I think about a month and a half ago. What OSINT is, and then also pivoting. So safe searching is something near and dear to my heart. I can tell you every mistake that you can possibly think of, I've done. I have gone onto forums and I've exposed my home IP. I've gone onto forums, I've exposed Ulta's IPs when I'm sitting in my chair at my office. It's bound to happen. And I can tell you, the biggest thing I want you guys to all start to really put in your head, when you start doing this type of searching or purposeful searching, get in the habit of figuring out what a process is. And that's really going to be the whole theme of tonight. So safe searching means a lot. And this is where I'm hoping you guys will give a little bit of interaction here. But I know, I would assume that you guys have all heard of what we call the clear, deep, and dark web. Is that a good assumption? I don't know if you guys are on mute.
Balance means yes, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the reason I want to point this out, and I'm going to actually close this part really quick too. So I want to show you guys something. So before I even go into a little bit more into what the clear, deep, and dark web is, I want to kind of get a poll right now. So if we're talking about those three different entities, they're all part of the internet, right? The clear, deep, and dark they're all the internet. It's all there. But if you had to tell someone or describe someone how much of the internet is each one, what would you guys think? Like, what would you think a percentage of the clear web would be, what's a percentage of the deep web, and what would be a percentage of the dark web? Someone throw out some numbers. And no cheating. You can't Google search. Or I guess more so, if you are going to Google search, you might be surprised. So the reason I bring this up is the deep web and the dark web kind of don't look like normal, or at least back when I first started doing OSINT and really diving down and understanding what the dark web is. I would have never guessed that the large chunk of the internet is really that deep in dark web. So the clear web, which is the stuff that we all access probably every day on Google, it's teeny. It's 4%. And the reason why it's teeny is because a lot of the stuff that's hidden, you have to know how to search for it. And that's really the main differentiation. When we talk about the clear web, we always talk about something where it's indexed. So is indexed a term you guys have heard of? I don't know if we have any DBAs. You guys might relate it to a DBA or a database where you index results into tables. It's kind of the same thing. And the reason I point this out is if we go to a regular Google search, so if I bring up Google, you get this nice, pretty search bar. And this counts for Google, Bing, all the search engines. The reason why I can type in, black dog is because all these pictures and all these pages, well, it's not exactly what I wanted, but all these pages are actually indexed. What index means is that your search bar, whether it's Google, Bing, Yandex, hundreds of the other ones out there, DuckDuckGo, they all have the ability to pull back information. So if we said maybe more specifically, black dog animal, now we should start getting pictures of a black dog. All of this stuff is indexed. So if you guys were able to get to the deep web and dark web right now and did the same search, you'd get 0 results because everything in the deep web and dark web, it's not indexed. And really so that's the main distinction, right? So you have this reversed giant ice cube where it's a little bit on the surface that's easy to get to, and a lot of stuff that's not so easy to get to. And I don't mean to point out that it's impossible to get to that. The deep web is technically open. Same with the dark web. And I use a really simple analogy when I talk about the dark web and deep web and clear web. I want you guys to imagine a giant parking lot, right? An empty parking lot with a whole bunch of spaces. And then kind of in the middle of that parking lot, I want you guys to dump a warehouse, like a dome-sized warehouse or rectangular, doesn't matter. So the example here is you can see the spaces where you can park. So if you wanted to say, hey, I want to see what's in space ABC, you can see if there's a car there, if something else, someone reserved it. That's kind of the analogy for the clear web. Now, the reason I use this is because you could drive your car up to the front of that warehouse and the warehouse is open. The door's wide open. You can drive right in, but you can't see anything from the top. You can't see anything from above. So you really don't know what's in there other than you can say that, hey, there's some container there that the deep web exists and the dark web exists inside of that container. Now, if you were to drive your car into there, you can completely find the stuff in the deep web. It's not very difficult. Again, it's not indexed, but you can still do some formative searching. Bing's a really good one. Yandex is another good one that allow you to kind of sort of search the deep web. It's not very effective. And a lot of times you kind of just have to dig and dive into it. And the dark web is kind of the same thing. So if we drive into that warehouse now, we're actually in the warehouse. The dark web analogy would be like that office that's in the back that has a door that has a lock. Now, the keys are literally sitting right next to that door. So you can go there, you can go right up to that door, grab the keys, put the keys in the door and open that door up and go right in. But there's just blocks in front of it. So traditionally when we talk, the main difference, and I don't really want to get too much into the deep web here, I want to give you the analogy of the dark web versus clear web. The dark web just requires something to tunnel you into it. So what we use to get into the dark web is something called Tor. There's a few other ones. There's I2P, that crazy looking bunny rabbit thing, which I've used once, and I don't think many people use a lot of it. But the reason why we have these 3 different characters, they all sit in the dark web. It's just one other way of being more anonymous. So for our purposes, most people equate the dark web to Tor, which stands for the onion router. And the reason they use this onion analogy, if you guys can imagine where you're sitting at, whether it's at home, girlfriend's house, boyfriend, whatever, at work, when you go out to the internet, imagine that as like a pipe. So just put a pipe in your head. That's your internet connection. That pipe has some type of IP that's assigned to wherever you sit. Like if it's in a house and you have a residential gateway, you have a WAN IP that sits on the outside. So it could be 1.1.1.1. And that's how to identify to tell traffic to go out of your house to wherever it goes and then back to pull it back in. When we talk about the dark web, it's essentially just a VPN. So when you spin up this other tunnel, you still have your pipe there, but it puts another layer onto that pipe to allow you to get traffic into the dark web and deep web. So, and the reason I bring up these layers is they have a whole onion theme, and that's really the whole difference is. So when you start using, the Tor browser, the Tor interface, or even a regular VPN, if you guys use IPVanish or Nord or whatever else is out there, it just puts another layer on top of your base layer. And the reason for this is because it provides you with anonymity. So for example, we go back to the analogy of you're sitting in your house and you click on something, it goes out to the internet, reads it and brings it back. You have exposed your IP to wherever you're going. If you wrap your connection with that VPN or that Tor gateway, you are now connecting to something that is tunneling into somewhere else. So as soon as you hit that second part, your traffic is completely anonymous. And I'm being a little ambiguous with that too, because if you really wanted to track people going into and out of the dark web, you can do it. There's people out there that do that now. They control the entrance and exit Tor nodes. But again, it's a skill set that I don't even want to get into on this talk today. It's very, very deep. But just know that it is possible. And if you're using the Tor browser now to protect yourself and protect your internet, just know that it's not completely anonymous. So if you start doing, crazy things like poking the government or doing whatever you do on the dark web, just know that you can have it traced back. But hopefully that makes sense. So we're just wrapping your original tunnel and then it's just going to where it needs to go to. So if we come back to that parking lot analogy, right? The outside is all the clear web. You can drive up, you can pull stuff away, you can walk up to someone else's car, open the door, take a look what's inside. There's no stopping you. When you get into that warehouse, that first part, you have to kind of drive around to find what's in there, search the shelves. And then when you hit that back locked door, you can still get into it, but you have to use the Tor gateway or that key to allow you into the door. So none of this stuff is hidden from everyone. And the reason why that iceberg is so massive on the bottom. So if we talk about where the internet actually came from, I'm sure probably everyone on here can probably tell me this, but it originated from our military. It was a way for the military to communicate and communicate, in a wide fashion to allow, storage of documents, talking, even battlefield stuff. So a lot of the deep web, that's really where you find a ton of government activity. And once again, it's because it's unindexed. And I'm not saying that you can find government stuff in the deep web if you go looking for it, because they do have stuff in place where they have to have like another special VPN or special tokenization or something else to completely let you into there. But just know that that's why that 95% is really the deep web. It's because originally it was set up for the government to use. Now, a lot of other people have kind of, moved into it, like online banking, other webmail stuff. It's because it helps with that anonymity. So I'm going to stop here because I know that was a massive data dump. Does anyone have questions on that? All right, I'm going to go on then. So that's kind of what the clear, deep, and dark web is. So when we go a little bit more forward, and the reason why I bring this up is I kind of already alluded to it, right? So you have to be careful. You can expose your IP. If you're not careful with using the Tor browser or even another VPN, you can potentially expose your IP that way too. So if we more talk about how to do some searching, and this is a question I get a lot is, hey, Nick, how do we really go out and research something? How do I actually go about doing it? So I can tell you right now, I'm sure all of us have done this at some point in our lives where we're like, oh, hey, I want to know who this guy is. Or, is this person that I met on one of those dating apps that I can't tell you right now because I can't think of one. Is this person really who they say they are? Or am I getting catfished? Or is this person just a serial murderer? So these are all things that you would normally do to kind of go out and search. And the reason I point this out is because when we start talking about OSINT and safe searching, you have to segregate yourself as a person and your online persona from whatever you're searching from. So we separate this by actually using creeping techniques, or what we call sock puppets, or separate accounts that have no attribution to you as a person. So for example, if I left myself logged into my Facebook page and I tried to go search for, some crazy random person who might be a threat actor, or, that crazy girl I met on one of these dating apps, I expose my Facebook page potentially then, because typically what does Facebook do? They say, oh, hey, do you know this person? And then boom, I show up on their feed and they're like, I don't know who the heck this is. And then they start clicking on me, and then they can probably put two and two together. So when we talk about safe searching, you always have to back up and more so always put in the back of your head, if I click on this link and I start doing the searching, am I putting myself in exposure? Now, this is about, the place where if I'm staring at you guys in a classroom, you guys get all these glazed over looks, and you're like, oh, so I'm not using Google anymore. That's not what I'm saying. So continue using Google, search for your cute dogs or cute kids or whatever else. But if you're going out to actually do some actual operational intelligence gathering, you want to protect yourself with as much as possible. So a sock puppet is essentially an account that I made up. I could backstop it to an email address, and then I open a Facebook account and Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and then I use that account for only research or reconnaissance and gathering. And the reason we do that too, so for example, I know I mentioned the dark web and going on there is more dangerous. I have multiple personas and multiple sock puppets that I only use in the dark web. The reason I do this is because I don't ever want to expose myself to one of those true threat actors that are in the dark web. I can tell you, and I'm admitting this to you guys because, again, I want you to understand to not do this before you have the tools capable. But I've gone into forums before, and I sort of played around. But if you don't have that backstop persona, eventually at some time, if you really, it's what I call poking the bear. Like if you go out and you just try and pull information or pull facts out of them, and you do it in a wrong way, you're going to turn that around for that threat actor to go, who the heck is this person? And they're going to start digging on you. And then what they're going to do is, because they have an established presence somewhere in the dark web, they potentially might know other hackers or other people that just, they want to cause chaos or they want to cause damage. And they're able to help that person find out who you are by using those entrance or exit codes. So again, when we talk about sock puppets, they can be used in a variety of ways. I can tell you, and again, we'll get to a whole other topic on sock puppets too. But when I typically use sock puppets, they're sort of me, and only simply because I want parts of myself to be in there, so it's natural for me to talk and I don't have to think about it. But at the same fact, it's completely not me. So effective searching, basic Google bar, searching through that stuff, social media reconnaissance, how to actually go through Twitter, Instagram, that stuff. You can use the Google bar or the Google search bar to do some social media reconnaissance, but you don't want to click in. So if you're not sure what that means, for example, if I were to look up, we'll search for me. We'll look for drop bears on Twitter. So boom, first person on here. So if I clicked on this, and I'm already logged into Twitter as this person already, but if I click onto here or even go into Facebook or something else, you potentially now just exposed yourself to that person by clicking that link and going to that person's page. So just be cautious, and I'm going to keep hammering this home at all points during this, but it's very, very important to remember that. Now, the last one I'll share with you guys, and it's not a great one, it's what we refer to as image intelligence. And it's something that I've gotten in the habit of doing no matter what. So if I were to ask you guys to send me a picture from your phone, I want you to text me a picture from your phone. Do you think I can tell where you're located at if you guys texted me a picture that you took? Like if you took of your house or your wall or a cool painting in your house, do you think I could tell you exactly where you live?
The picture has metadata on there.
Awesome. Perfect. Exactly. So when we talk about image intelligence, it's not just what's sitting on that image itself. And I'm not going to dive into, embedded image use for hacking, because there's stuff you can do to embed URLs and embed, malware into the image itself. That's not what I'm talking. I'm more saying if you take a picture with some device, because we are in a digital age, it gets stamped with something. So just to give you guys an example of some of the data that gets stamped into that, it can not only tell you what type of camera you used, it could punch latitude and longitude, it could punch a Wi-Fi address of where you were, it could punch even who you are if you enter that into your camera. So in the case of like iPhones and Androids and any other, cell phone device and social media, if you guys, knowing what I just told you, if you posted a picture to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, do you think I could go on one of those platforms, pull off an image, and get some data from it? Typically, no. And I don't mean to, again, put on that tinfoil hat. Typically, no. And the reason I say typically no is because let's think about this for 1 second. Let's pretend we're the bad guys right now, and we want to learn as much as we can about our target. So we notice that our target went to Barcelona, and we see his really cute cousin. And now I want to start stalking his cousin who lives in the United States, just happens to, live close to me. And I want to stalk this person. It's impossible for me, well, almost always impossible for me to go onto their site or pull a picture down and pull that, they call it metadata or EXIF data, EXIF, pull it down and actually use it for a nefarious purpose. They do that as a point of sanitization. So if you go on to Twitter or you go on to Facebook or Instagram, you really won't find any of that EXIF data, because as soon as you submit a picture, part of their intake process is to scrub all of that out. And you cannot ever get that back once it's been scrubbed. But I can tell you, not all sites are created equal. So for example, we're talking about mainstream social media. But hey, this person posted into ilovefarmers.com. I don't know what that person does for their images. So hey, if I found another image, that's why I always say it's not a great one, but you should know and understand it, because you could possibly pull out more information that'll allow you to pivot a little bit more. So that's what we call image intelligence. Any questions on this stuff now? I know this is going to be a lot of information too. So if it gets too much, we can pause till next time too, but this is a lot. So now that we talked about effective searching, what the difference is between the clear, deep, and dark web, we talked a little bit about, you always want to keep in the back of your head that process that you guys are going to come up with to do your searching. We looked at sock puppets, effectively, or I should say safely searching social media, and then looking at that image intelligence. Now there's this wonderful tool that is absolutely free, and literally anyone on this planet can use it, and it's called Google hacking. And it's going to look quite different, probably, if you guys are not familiar with what Google hacking or Google dorking is. They're basically search strings or search queries. Essentially, it's just a more advanced way to allow someone like myself or you all to make a more clearly defined search and get better or more refined results. So what does this actually mean? What this actually means is, I'm going to go back to this dog example that we just did. So I pulled up black dog animal. Let's say I didn't really want a black dog. Let's say I was talking about spots. So let's say dog with black spots. So I got 602 billion results. So I don't know about what you guys are doing for the rest of this week or maybe for the rest of your life, but I'm pretty sure I'm not getting through all these pages in my lifetime. So I might get some results that are somewhat relevant. And here's another good thing to understand too. When you get stuff presented, when you just use the plain Jane search bar, and this can be another topic we can go into, but they use what they call SEO, which is essentially a suggestion engine. So for example, this person that shows up as number one, they probably either did one of two things. They paid for the spot with Google and they're trying to get as much ad space as they can, or they used other ways to kind of hack that SEO to show them first. So I'm not saying, and I know for the most part, this is probably a truth with a lot of this, but usually the first page in Google is the most effective, but it doesn't mean that you won't find almost the same type of information like this presents here in other pages. It just means that they're further down on the SEO scale and they're just not presenting as number 1 through number 10. So there is value in going through those other pages. Now, like I said, I don't have the time to go through 602 billion pages. It's impossible. It's not a good habit, but I want you to understand that this is the first thing that I do with any type of open source intelligence gathering. I go straight to Google and I put it straight into here. And you'll kind of see why in a few seconds. So now if we throw in some Google dorking, so we have this dog with a black spot. Let's say we go in and we do, so it should give us a little bit less. So I put spot and now I put spots. I'm being more specific. So if I did want a dog with a single black spot, like one black spot, this would be the search for. So what we can do is we can actually start using what we call as Google operators. So these might look a little foreign, and I'll go into this in a little bit. But let's say I want to specifically look for this phrase of dog with black spots. So you guys remember that original search we did? So actually, let's keep it even. We'll do black spot. So we started off with 602 billion results, and we now just narrowed it down to 1.4 million. So it's still a crunch down. It's not great. I still wouldn't want to go search through 1.4 million pages, but check this out too. So look at this very first page. Cute brown dog with black spot. That was not even on our first page. So if you had to look at these two, would you think that this is a better result or a worse result from what we did originally? Anyone? Probably a better result. That's really what I'm getting at. Now, if we click into it, again, this is not very specific. You know, I don't see one dog with a single black spot. So this, again, we got 1.4 million results. We want to refine this a little bit more. So when we look at doing Google operators, and I know this is a really crummy example. I don't want to give you good examples because we're going to go through some that I want to go through in the labs. But what you can do is you can start using other things. So we can say, I'm looking for a dog with black spot that is only in Reddit. So look at that. I got literally one result. So here's what I want to see. Does this result show up anywhere on here in the first page? Nope. It's probably going to be 2, 3, 4, even 10 down. Let's take a look. So this is a dog. And it does have a black spot for an eye, but I don't see anything else. So again, and this is the other reason I do this is I don't ever pre-can these searches because I want you guys to see that doing this stuff is not perfect. You will eventually come to a point where you're just like, this means nothing to me, which is this means absolutely nothing to me right now. I was looking for an actual animal dog and it gave me a stuffed animal. So what we do is we can go back and take a look at those operators and modify them more. So there's a whole bunch of operators, and it probably will absolutely confuse the living heck out of you because I was confused when I first looked at this. So the ones that you're seeing here, like site, in URL, in text, in title, file type, these are the ones that I kind of started with. And the other problem with these two is there's no right or wrong way to do your searching. So if we look at, I'll leave this up here. If we look at in text, which is what I used over here. What if I change this to all in text? And this is good. So I was expecting to get this in a little bit earlier, but this is fine too. So if you ever see this page, this is normal. This is a response from Google because you are asking for very specific search criteria and it thinks you are a bot. So all you need to do is click past it and then it'll allow you to go right into here. So if we do all in text, we get nothing. So let's remove this. So we still got our 1.47 million. So the reason, why do you think that we did not get results when we left reddit.com in here with all in text versus in text? Anyone? I need a cricket sound.
Because you're searching for the exact string, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. So you were looking for this exact string. And this is exactly what I want to point out to you guys right now. There's no right or wrong way to do Google searching. And the one thing that I found, you can remove quotes. So let's see what happens when we remove quotes. So look, we got 130 billion results again, or 130 million, sorry, can't read. Got 130 million results because of this. So changing how you search with this. So typically what Google will do is it grabs the first word and then kind of does an and with black spot. So let's see what happens when we do this. So we got a totally different set of results. So this is about the place where a lot of people ask, well, hey, what am I supposed to do with this? You just told me that I need to use Google dorking or Google hacking, and none of your searches really mean anything now. You just showed me that I can change the wording order and I get different results. Well, this is not necessarily a bad thing. And I know we're looking at dogs, so I want to switch for a second. I want to show you something that's near and dear to my heart. So it's something that I just talked about in the last talk I did. So if we look at Ulta and config, this will only bring back typically open bullet configs or any type of working config that is onto my company right now. The reason why I say to shift around and do these in a different order or even remove the quotes is because you will get different data. It is a great idea to continue shifting on here because look, this one was not on that other page, the sick account shop. So this is another one that I can potentially look at. So really the moral of the story, no, there's not a right or wrong way to do these, this dorking or Google hacking. The easiest thing I can tell you is just play around with it. Switch the words around. The one thing I'll caution you with in-text and specifically to in-text is if you put a space, it seems to break. And I don't know why. This worked for a really long time and you can leave a space and you can put quotes there and it worked fine. For some reason, about 5 months ago, it stopped working. And then it completely stopped working on the mobile versions too, like altogether. So if you were to do it on your mobile device, it wouldn't work at all. It seems like mobile device is back and now in-text works, but as long as you do not have a space in here, all in-text still seems to work. If you put any types of spacing or something in there. Does this hopefully make sort of sense to you, to everyone here? Does anyone have questions on this? It's okay if you don't too. I know this is
it definitely makes sense, I think, but most of the time you got to do it, right? You got to have practice, and that's going to get you a little bit more closer to the actual reality of what's going to happen when you do this.
Correct. And that's what I'll say. So we're going to play around this with the labs. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to do some searching too, and I'll sit here with you guys and help you guys. I do also want you guys to know that there is what they call a Google hacking database. If you guys have ever gone through CH, Certified Ethical Hacker, or the Offensive Security Certified Hacker, any one of those, you're probably near and dear familiar with this because of the exploits page. But they actually do have a repository that was done, and I forget the guy's name, but there was a guy who spent like 10 years putting down every possible combination of what you can use for Google hacking and into this database. Now,
that's Johnny Long.
Oh, there you go. So the one thing I want to point out is this quick search. It's a hot dumpster fire on a good day. You will get some crazy weird results. Like you might type in URL and something, and you get something that has nothing to do with URL. So, excuse me, use it as kind of face value. What I like to do is I kind of skip through and just see how other people are doing it. And the reason for this is because even though I'm showing you guys these simple 5, like site, in URL, in text, in title, file type, there's hundreds of other ways to shape these to get more proactive intelligence on what you're looking at. So for example, if we look at what I do in my daily job, I search for Ulta configs and I look for open bullet or black bullet or Sentry MBA, or even now they have another whole iteration called silver bullet. Let's say I wanted to do something that was a little bit more specific. So the file type for these config files, they're called .loli. So if I said, I want you to look for lolly, and I want you to give me something. So there's nothing that it determines. So more often than not, they probably didn't post the same thing, or maybe we weren't specific enough. So let's try .lolly. Still nothing. Let's try some quotes. Nope, nothing. So let's try another one. A lot of times they'll use .text. Still nothing. And still nothing. So according to this, there could be files out there, but again, they're not indexed in a way to where using Google hacking can find them. So that leads me to believe, and this is a very common thing that occurs for those that are not in this type of space that deal with e-commerce, these aren't typically given up for free. So you might see like a single entry and then proof that it works. You typically won't see someone just post this thing for free unless it's completely just trash and dead. So like I said, just don't get disheartened. That's why we always start with, and again, remember this process. I always start with a simple Google search and I want to see what I come up with. So granted, this is not terribly, well, actually these two would be Sick Account Shop. Oh, there we go. Ulta Encrypted.lolly. This is actually an interesting site, which I can touch on in a little bit, but there's hackers that'll actually hide it inside of education sites. And the reason they do that is because you actually have to get verified to go in and download or view. So this is actually kind of a neat thing to see too. This is one that I know is trash already. This is a couple of years old. So I always start here and then I start refining my search by using, better or more specific. Now, the other thing I'll point out too, the site and in URL, they are technically different, even though they will kind of give you similar or even the same results. So the reason I like pointing these out is because it might not necessarily be, when we say in URL, we add something in before it. So I can say, I'm going to feed you some data. I want to look for A, but in this specific URL or in this site, and it'll completely spider through the site. So if you guys want to get more of them too, and I'll give you guys this presentation too. These two resources, this is actually how I got started with Google dorking and Google hacking. I can tell you that I don't feel I'm an expert doing this. I would say I'm probably intermediate and pretty decent at going through this stuff. And I started literally probably about a year to maybe a year and a half ago, really diving into this stuff. And these two blogs were amazing. So now we're going to dive in and shift a little bit and actually talk about what OSINT is. And if you didn't pick up on it from my title slide, OSINT stands for Open Source Intelligence. So open source intelligence is a super broad term. Where do we even start to look at what we're going to search for, how we're going to search for it, or what do we even go through, or what the heck even is OSINT? So we really boil it down to one thing. And this is also about the spot where someone always raises their hand and says, is OSINT okay to do? And I look back at them and I say, and I'm sure you've heard me repeat this in the last talk, if you were there, OSINT is only okay if you're okay with it. So would I tell you as a person or an individual or human that you now need to go and do OSINT on every one of your family members, every person you work with, and your girlfriend, your wife? You might be peeling back something that you can't unsee. So the easiest way I'll tell you is OSINT is not illegal. There's nothing wrong with doing it. When we talk about OSINT, is essentially anything that's open for direct searching or somewhat indirect advanced searching, or using the dark or deep web, which again, hard to search, but there's ways to do it. So if it's out there and somebody posted it, it's already fair game. This is also why I personally, as an individual, I don't believe in any privacy or any security along those lines anymore. I'm happy to hand out the site where if you guys want to go look at all of my past addresses and my social security number, have at it. I don't believe in any of that anymore because I can be my own best advocate for privacy and security of my own information. But when we start talking about, hey, I gave my number to my best friend, can I trust my best friend to do exactly what I'm going to do? Or my company, or that website that I wanted to see the article and I had to sign in with my first and last name and my date of birth to prove that I was over 21. There's all that stuff to consider. So the reason why OSINT is simply so effective is because all of us as individuals that use the internet and social media and everything else on there, we give away the information for free. And I can tell you right now, I didn't pay for Facebook. I'm sure none of you guys did. So if we're not paying to use that product to make those connections and talk on that platform, that is absolutely powerful. I don't want to undertone Facebook at all. But if you are not paying for a service, then you are the service. They are using you, they're using your data, and they're getting and collecting money by giving out your data and your fingerprints, your online fingerprints, and they're selling them to ad companies. That's also why too, like, funny enough, have you guys ever started talking about, like, I'll give you an example. I was talking to my best friend on the phone. I didn't even do a search for this, but I was like, man, I got to find new tires for my trailer on my boat. And then all of a sudden I clicked into the Google search bar, went into another site, and I saw ads on the side there for boat trailer tires. And I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. And I was like, well, how did that work? So it led me to believe that either they're listening to my cell calls, which is possible. I could have given an app, the ability to pull out keywords or something weird like that. I doubt that would fly if it ever got out. They would be absolutely annihilated in the media. But some of these apps like Facebook and all the social media stuff, they are so good that they actually understand who you are as a person and a human, that they can tell from some of your search strings or your search queries or things that you're interested in or that you're looking at of what you're actually trying to get to. I didn't search for boat tires at that point. I clicked on it and I looked on there and I saw an ad for boat tires. And I go, oh, hey, I got to click on that. I was looking for boat tires. So open source intelligence, it's an absolutely immense environment. I can tell you that if I had to do a deep dive on any one of you guys, I can probably pull out your top passwords, unless you truly have used or started using password safe. But if you guys have passwords that you normally use on all your accounts, and this goes for, I know we have some high school age students too. So this is something to learn right now. Learn good password strength. Don't use the same password across your accounts, because I consider myself a hacker, and I consider myself a social engineer. I can go out and I can collect enough information about you as an individual on Facebook, on Twitter, on social media, to where I can probably make a very good guess on what your password is and then brute force it. And this is the same type of thinking that those really nasty threat actors, nation state people, they know all this already. So realistically, OSINT is nothing new. It's simply like, back in the day when the internet wasn't readily available, you went to the library to learn on things, or you had to search through, thousands of pages in newspaper. The stuff's there. You just have to go through and search for it. So OSINT, for the most part, is anything that you can clearly see on the internet that would technically involve things that you can pay for. Like, for example, if you go to People Search, which is a fancy name to say People Search, or any one of those background searches, you're not really breaking the law by asking for that information. It's just out there, and they're just presenting it to you in a very easy to read format. That doesn't mean that you can't do your due diligence and find all that stuff too. Now, when we start talking about what we consider, more along the lines of like government documents, like driver's license or social security numbers, those are not so much what I would tell you guys is open source. So if you guys run across those, you would be potentially breaking some type of law by having that or collecting that as information. I can also tell you that, for example, I follow breach lists. So it's very important to me and my company. Whenever those large breach list comes out with those tons and tons of points on there, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with collection 1 or collection 2 through 5, which was the same thing as 1. It was just repackaged differently, but it had a whole bunch of usernames and passwords. I didn't necessarily care about the accounts or where they were. I wanted the passwords because I use those passwords in a rainbow table book that I have. I literally have a 4 terabyte drive that is literally at 99% full of just passwords. So when I want to go crack someone's password through brute force or password spraying, I load up my Kali instance and I set Jack the Ripper or Mimikatz on them, and I just pound away and go to town. So these are the things to where it's very invaluable as a practitioner. And I always bring up this too, and I'm sure, Othai, I haven't been on your series very much, but I'm sure you've pointed out in the past of white hat versus gray hat versus black hat hacker, or black hat, white hat, gray hat individual. So realistically, everything I do, I don't ever go into the black. I never do it. I'll be the first person to admit to you guys, if you've had other teachers that have taught courses to you, I do play in the gray. And I do things that are right up into that line. And the reason I do that is because I've learned that you can't get always the best answer. And again, I don't want to condone this. I'm just telling you from mistakes that I've made. This is where you should almost always work in the white, do good and don't do harm. But some of these threat actors that I deal with, they don't play on the same terms or the same rules that I adhere to. So I unfortunately have to bend my own morality to get down on their level to get information from them. But OSINT, totally on the up and up. You can search through news, you can search through social media, and you can search through government, public records. Now, remember that first thing I said to you guys, that process. So this is where I really want to hammer this process home. So methodology to do this searching. So I could give every one of you guys right now some key phrase or maybe a first and last name. You can even try my own name. Otha's, I'm sure Otha's is on his WebEx. You can search his first and last name from WebEx. There's OSINT for you right there. Otha gave me his first and last name on there. Not to mention, I know he works at Cisco because it says it right on there. He's part of Cisco WebEx, right? So those are 3 points of information that I didn't really have to think very hard on, but hey, now I collected. So if you were to go off and do one of the searches and I just gave you a term, you're going to do what everybody else does when they start out. You just throw it into Google and you're going to kind of go to town and try and go down some other holes. It's not very effective. And again, learn from my mistakes. I started off thinking OSINT was this, quick 5 to 10 minute thing. And I'm going to tell you that 90% of the time when I start doing OSINT on an individual, a threat actor, an organization, carding, fraud, fulls, the stuff that's directly impacting to my company, you are going to stumble on stuff that is absolutely super interesting, has no relevance to what you're searching for now, but will provide you with more data. So the reason I point this out now, and I come back to this process, is usually what I tell people starting off with OSINT, don't ever go into it blindly. Literally go get a notepad or something like a dry erase board, write down what you're looking for. Put that word down on paper. So you just defined what requirement you are physically looking for. If you don't do that, you're going to spend hours and more than likely not have a lot to show. So the second part of doing this, like I said, we can always put my first name, my last name into Google, and you can get some data. But is that data important? Does it give you anything? So typically what I look at, and the reason why I say get that sheet of paper, get that dry erase board, is put that name in the middle of that sheet and draw a circle around it. That's your first centralized location for a point of interest. Then what you're going to do, and I'm sure, or at least I hope you guys, I would assume you guys have all seen a spider web. So the center is kind of where the spider hangs out and then crawls out to its prey, grabs it, pulls it in. Same thought process here. So you have that bubble in the middle, that's your spider's home. So what you're going to do now is by putting in that search term and using Google or Google dorking, you're going to put other bubbles around that middle bubble, and those are just other things to search for. So for example, back to my original thing where I said, hey, look for Nick Light or Otha Mabry. You can look at those, find something else on the internet, draw a different circle, and come back to it. Like, so let's say, for example, we looked up my first and last name and I found an email address that was associated with me because I was dumb enough to put my first and last name in my email. And I use it for every single username across all my social media. So I'm already done in that case. So I can put email as another bubble, my username is another bubble, maybe my phone number, maybe where I live, the state I'm in. Those are all other relevant searches. Now, once you have gathered that information, this is kind of where OSINT is really an art form to me. And like I said, I've had people literally say, Nick, I need a process. You need to write it out for me. I need steps 1 through 10. I am never going to be able to give you those steps. Now, what I can give you is the tools to get this information. Like Otha brought up the, DNS dumpster and then Shodan on the last one I was on. Those are just tools. They might not necessarily give you anything important, but again, it's just more tools. I can't tell you when it's relevant to use those. Like, for example, my first and last name. Do we want to go look at Shodan and look for my first and last name? Probably not. I don't have an IP. I'm not a domain name. Or I don't have a C record or an A name and I don't own a website. Probably not going to be very relevant. But if I give you all those tools, when you see that data and you recognize that data, you can then use those tools for what you want to know. So like I said, process. Start small, spider out from the middle. If you want to think about it almost like spider web or a volcano kind of, or you dumping water on the page, it just spreads out. Same thing. Now, the last part of this, and this is where I can tell you that if you don't set yourself some time limits, and I don't point this out directly on here because I actually keep pointing it out all throughout the rest of this presentation, but set yourself some time limits, man, because I've gone into the dark web and I'm telling you, I went at 10 a.m. in the morning on a Friday. And when I looked up, it was 3:22 in the afternoon. I spent 5.5 hours on the dark web, and I had literally nothing to show for it. And my brain just hurt from looking at all the stuff that I did. So if you're not getting good, relevant information, move on, or set yourself a time limit of, and this is usually what I do. So if you want to see my process, I set myself usually 10 minutes or 15 minutes to start with, and then I completely abandon it. I'll get up and I'll walk away, or I'll go to something else, because what you're doing in the background, your brain will actually start processing that information. And when you come back, you might be like, man, why didn't I look at this, this, and this? These are plain as day on my paper. This makes sense. And now you've able to, pivot it on something else that might get you other, some other requirement or something else that's relevant to you. So why is this stuff so powerful? It's literally what I've already alluded to. Everyone that's sitting in this WebEx has given all of your information out, and most likely you've given it out for free. Now, I'm not talking about like the Equifax breach, that you didn't give that out for free. You didn't consent to have them be breached. So, but for the most part, you've given enough out to the internet and even to your friends that have, I'll give you another example. If you give your telephone number to your best friend and they save it in their phone because they know everything about you, they're your best friend. So they say, my number is Nick Light, and then they put my address in there, and they put my date of birth, they put my kid's name in there, and then they go onto an app store, like to a product or user, or using like Facebook Messenger, for example. And when you download it, what's the first thing it asks? Hey, do you consent to these terms and conditions? I need access to your phone book. I need access to your camera. I need access to your microphone. And this is about the time where I go, well, this app's a waste of time, and I delete it, and I never sign up for those, because if you consent to doing that, your best friend just gave away all your information because they gave access to their phone book, not understanding or not knowing that that data will be used somewhere else. So this is all, it's not some mass conspiracy. There's not like the Illuminati or that crazy looking eye thing in the background that's stealing everybody's information. We're literally giving it to them. And if you guys wanted to know, there's about 10 large sites that we consider what we term data brokers. And if you guys are interested too, if this is something interesting to you, if you guys want to learn about how to hide some of your privacy or really become, more constrained or more put down into a box, I can help you guys with that as well too. It's something I do at my work and then in some of my volunteering. But if you guys are interested in that, that's a whole other topic we can get into. But just know that, and I know the stats, it's a year old, it's 2019, but there's tons and tons of stuff that just happens in 60 seconds alone. Not to mention, if you look at the graph that we're projecting for 2021, we're in 2020, we have 2.9 billion users. There's going to be a whole other section. We're going to go and breach the 3 billion. So we're not getting smaller. We're getting more and more into social media, and it's becoming more and more, the norm. I can tell you my daughter has a YouTube page. She has a Facebook page. She has 4 different emails, and guess what? I've grabbed all of them so she doesn't do something bad. And I've already started talking to her about how social media affects them. So there's whole different ways. I can tell you that I didn't grow up with a computer. I grew up with, Nintendo and Super Nintendo and N64 and all the gaming systems. I never had a computer. I never had a personal computer until I went to college. And then, AOL and all the rest of the stuff. So I was never really exposed to it in my youth. Like some of you folks maybe in high school now, or even in the college years, you guys have probably literally, when you came out of the womb, had some type of device stuffed into your face from birth just to keep you entertained or to, keep you from screaming. That's not what I grew up with. And that's where the massive shift in all these years, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. They're going to find new ways to steal your data. So we kind of talked about this already, and I point this out because this is almost where it really truly becomes an art form. So if you guys, I'm not artistic at all. I am absolutely, if you ask me to draw a picture of a cat, it would look like I sneezed something with some black lines and maybe some teeth and some fur. It's awful. I've been told by my daughter the only thing I'm good at drawing is the poop emoji, as well as a unicorn, because that was what she would always request me to draw, and I've done it a billion times. But pivoting is literally an art form. If you get good enough at doing this open source intelligence, you will eventually at some point in your career realize that a lot of this process that you guys are going to go through, it's really almost always the same. And what you'll start to notice is patterns. So, and the reason I bring up patterns is because my day job is labeled as cyber threat intelligence. I look for threats, I hunt for threats, and that's, we can talk about the hacking and the vulnerability stuff all day long, but I'm more talking about I am effectively a data scientist at this point in my career, whether I signed up for that title or not, because I got a whole bunch of data and I need to figure out some way to take that data, refine it, and then paint a picture that is neutral. And when I say neutral, for example, if you go in and let's say, hey, Nick showed me all this cool OSINT stuff, and then this guy just cut me off in my car, and I'm so mad at him that I want to start doing a license plate and, reverse, and I want to follow this guy to his house, and I got his, and then you put all this stuff in there, you've already painted a negative picture. And the reason I point this out is because you never want to assume something. I can tell you that out of all of the investigations I've ever had, I personally wouldn't feel comfortable if my company came to me and said, hey, I'm pretty sure this person's working a second job. He's a director, VP, and he's, dipping feet in two different pools and collecting, 40 hours a week salary on both ends. I wouldn't be comfortable and say, man, I really don't like that director and I want to, torpedo him or submarine him. So I'm going to shift the data and make it look like he is doing it. You absolutely don't want to do that. It doesn't do anyone a good service. It doesn't do you a good service. And I know that's a really extreme example, but you can do the same thing if you start going down the tunnel on these things. So let's say, for example, you're looking for, an open bullet config, and you find someone that posted an open bullet config. Are you sure that that person is a threat actor, or are they a researcher that's just trying to figure out vulnerabilities for websites and they want to help out companies? You never know. So think about being completely objective when you're doing your searching. And that goes with pivoting too. But here's the one key difference. And I always teach this to everyone I talk to when I go through a lot of these topics. You want to think like you normally do. You probably have a way that you've done your research for your, papers in high school, papers in college, your research for your companies. You probably have it very well defined and you're used to doing it. Now, what I will encourage you guys to do, and I'm hoping that no one in this room is a bad guy. You shouldn't be a threat actor. I hope you're not attacking people or doing things for nefarious reasons. But I'm going to tell you right now that start thinking about that black hat guy. What is that person or girl? What is that person doing? How are they eluding? How are they evading being found? And that's where you will start to open up even more stuff. And this is where pivoting comes in. So for example, if I said, hey, Nick owns a car wash, and I drove by that car wash hundreds of times, it's never busy. And half the time it looks like it's closed. But that car wash is still sitting there, and Nick looks like he's driving, new Ferraris. He just moved into a mansion, has 4 different houses all around the US, 2 houses in Europe. First thing out of my mind is that guy is funneling money somewhere, and that is a front. So it might not necessarily be true, but that could be one example of what you can go and research. So it brings you down another tunnel. It might not be the actual truth. It might just be that, hey, at that time of day, they already did their research and they know that no one's going to come in for a car wash. Just like I didn't stop for a car wash. They know that. But you might not be seeing that in the data. So we talk about pivoting. And the other thing too with pivoting, and this is why I literally repeat this word for word, no one enough is enough. So you remember we started with that process. We start off with that name and that bubble in the middle of your sheet or your dry erase board or whatever else. You can even use your computer, start with that thing in the middle and then spider out. But if you've reached that 15 minutes and you're just like, man, I think there's tons and tons, take a break. Or say this one time, and I know we always say this one time, it's never that one time, but we're going to give you another 5 minutes. But know when enough is enough. If you're going down and you're just not getting anything that's useful and pivoting, or you really might have painted the whole picture, what I found even myself as a practitioner is I find it as a personal offense if I can't give someone what they're looking for. So if someone comes up to me and says, hey, Nick, I think this person is a reseller of Ulta goods. Can you help me figure that out? When I don't find anything, it bothers me. I get angry, but I've had to let that go because I can't make assumptions on business decisions for my company and say, well, everything is pointing to that person being a reseller, but let's just say that they have tons and tons of family that buy a lot of gifts for them. The dude's rich or the guy or the girl's rich. We don't know. And that's what I'm saying. So keep track of your evidence, know what you're looking for, and keep those bubbles on the outside and start making notes of those. So one more thing too, like the rabbit hole part, where I kind of mentioned that Friday where it was 5.5 hours later and I had no idea what the heck I did for 5 hours. You can go down the rabbit hole, but again, set yourself a time limit and know when enough's enough. If you're not pulling out any good useful information for what you set out to search for, but you found 10 other things that are just absolutely awesome that you want to go back to, guess what? Get out a new sheet of paper and write those 10 things down there and do it later. We already went over ethical, so there's nothing really left on here. So I'm going to show you a good example, and this is probably going to look very overwhelming. I want to preface this with this. What I'm about to show you was done by someone whose entire career was around open source intelligence. He's literally the guy that wrote the book for the FBI. He developed their program, trained probably most of the FBI. He no longer is in the FBI, and he does this for fun now. But his name is Michael Bazzell. So I know this kind of breaks that bubble rule. And like I said, if your process, you don't want to put it in the middle, you want to put it in the corner, put it wherever else, do whatever makes sense to you. Like I said, I'll give you the process I do, but you might look at it and be like, that's crazy, Nick. I'm not doing that. And that's fine. It's just because my brain is going to think a certain way and yours might think another way. Like where Otha might go right to DNS dumpster for a domain, I might go right to Whois. And that's the first thing I want to look at. I want to look at their registration record. It doesn't really matter because eventually I'm going to get to that same website that Otha used, just like he's going to get to the same Whois that I am. We just did it in a simple order. So when we look at this spider web, they actually started with this email address. So this is really their center point or the middle of their spider web. And what they're essentially doing is they're pulling other things off. What else can we find from an email address? So if I gave you an email address, remember why I gave you that really poor example of I'm going to get owned all day long, and I use nick.light@gmail and nick.light for every one of my usernames at all my bank accounts. What did I give away? My username. It's right there in the email. So if I search for my first and last name of nick.light or any variation, n.light or ni.light or something like that, you might pull out more information. Now, it might not be what you were given, meaning let's say you started with an email address. My email address is n.light@live.com. And I can tell you I've used n.light as a username before. I have stopped doing it. I don't do it because I don't want to give out more information than I have. But this is also the point to where we can go and we can look at verifying address through Hunter.io. We can look at search engines, Google, Yandex, Bing, check out websites. Hey, we found a website and a blog with him in there. He listed his email. Oh, there's his username, NLEICHT. Oh, well, let's see what other social networks are on there. And I can tell you there's ways where you can still sort of use email to do like reverse username, but they've pretty much all for the most part done away with it. So if you're trying to use an email address, it's really, really difficult. Twitter knocked that one off. You used to be able to use their API, but they realized that the bad guys were just using it to enumerate usernames for password lists. So they would go to people that were on Twitter, and then they would associate them with IDs, and then find them on breach lists, and then create their own actually good breach list that they would sell. But for the most part, you can't really go backwards from social media. I haven't really found a good way to do it. But does this hopefully make sense? So we start off with an email address. They're looking at to verify the address. This, he went through and removed the domain and username. He's looking at just Mike B55. So he got a username, search Facebook, found his employer, did a document search. He found his real, my real name. And then you just basically go round and round in the circle. So you're just gathering more and more information on a particular subject. Now, I did provide, the Amazon resource on here. I do not want you guys to go out and buy this book. It is inexpensive. It's only $40. I can tell you if you have problems sleeping, just start reading this book before you want to go to bed. It will literally put you to sleep. But don't buy this book until you are starting to get to the point to where you really want to hide who you are. Like if you're in the space of a threat hunter, a true person who does OSINT all day long, you work for some agency, 3-letter agency, or you might be part of the arm that does ORC, organized retail crime, or loss prevention at your shop. Then this might be worth you buying. But I can tell you, for most people that I've talked to or instructed to use OSINT or searching, the book has a lot of information that you're just never going to use. And those two other, remember these two right here. This is going to give you more than enough of what you're going to really need to really go out and do this. If you start getting more comfortable, what I will tell you that this book will do is it'll help you not only search more effectively, but it'll also teach you how a lot of these sites work. And then it'll also give you a platform that you can maintain yourself. I know I would think everyone on here is pretty much familiar with VirtualBox or VMware. It shows you how to download some of these open source specific browsing sites like Hunix or Tails, and use that to your advantage. He also used to keep up a list of tools, but apparently is free work for people, and he got so many complaints when stuff broke that they felt like going out and telling him that his stuff is broke and it's not his stuff, so he just stopped providing the list. But his book will tell you how to create that virtual machine that'll really give you literally all the privacy you need to properly do a lot of this stuff. For me, I can tell you that I usually don't work in VMs anymore to do most of my open source stuff. Usually the most advanced I get is really doing, and this only responds to clear. If I go deep or dark, I have a totally separate laptop that is completely air gapped from myself. It's also never been on my home network. I use a MiFi that belongs to my company that's not identifiable. And I use a laptop with very specific processes, so I hide myself. So what I'd like to do now is I'm gonna pause here. I know from giving this talk that it's a lot of information. Don't expect you guys to remember or regurgitate absolutely everything out of here. But does anyone have questions, or would anyone like anything clarified a little bit better?
I had a question.
Yeah.
And I just, like, this is interesting how you dissected this broke this whole process down. Now I had a thought. If someone does a background check on you, are they doing a similar type of, because it's the credit reporting agencies. They're also looking at law enforcement, but are they looking at your footprint, digital footprint, do you think? Like say, I mean, let's just be honest, we're all in security, right? We're all working in this industry. I mean, they're doing some heavy background checks. I don't know. I've had some pretty extensive ones ran on myself, but I mean, say if you're starting to work with the FBI, theirs is going to be a little bit more, getting deeper into this dark web. What would your experience tell about that kind of process? How would it differ?
So that is an absolutely amazing question, Kevin. I've never, out of giving this talk this many times, I've never had anyone ask me. So I'm gonna I'm gonna approach this in two different ways. You mentioned your browser and your fingerprint. So I can tell you that, and again, I don't want to dissuade you from doing this open source intelligence, but again, I work in a place to where I deal with threat actors and I deal with that, people that attack Ulta every single day. So what's important to them is account takeovers. And this is going to be a very roundabout way of explaining this, but just bear with me. So when we talk about account takeovers, we talk about a username and a password, and they go into their customer account and they steal or use their points. So they monetize something that they just stole. And now we're finding that these people are getting more and more advanced. And this goes into the whole dark web thing. When I go and I search on the dark web, I don't even use the same keyboard. I prop my keyboard up and I make it awkward and I type with my index fingers. So, and this is where we're gonna start putting on that tinfoil hat. So everything that you do on your internet, at your home, on your computer or your work computer is tracked. It's tracked and categorized and tabulated. And this is where those data brokers, they were very smart in the beginning because they got into an industry that no one really even understood, and they knew that there would be value in this data that they just collected for the last 15 years when no one cared about it. So what if I were to tell you that for $20, I can go to a website and I can buy your browser fingerprint? I don't care about your username and password anymore. I bought you. The reason why I say I bought you, it's more beyond, and this is a very advanced topic. So again, I don't want to overwhelm the people that might not understand a lot of these e-commerce terms I'm using, but like there's cookies, there's browser fingerprints, there's who you are as an individual, meaning when you fire up your computer, more often than not, you do the same exact 5 things every single day, right when you log in. Like I can tell you when I open up my work laptop, and I usually don't shut down, or if I restart I either restart like once a week and then that's my first thing. But typically the first place I go is my email. And then I go straight to my internet and I check my tools. So if you were to take yourself outside of your work and you look at in your human life, you have the same set of things that over time become a pattern. The reason why we call these browser fingerprints is because you can identify someone just based on what they browse on or where they browse to or the sites and pages they go. You can make a very good inference of who that person is. So to your question about the FBI, they absolutely do much more advanced OSINT. They focus more on, is this person really who they say they are? Because guess what? They're inviting you into the fold. They're putting you into a government organization that absolutely you have to know who you're talking with and who you're dealing with. You know, that's also why they have a lot of stringent, upfront procedures and protocols. Like you really can't have any type of record for anything, especially for like top secret clearance. There's a whole bunch of stuff with that too. But they are getting more and more advanced to where they can really tell if you are who they say you are. Because if they bring you in a room and they have you use the internet or they monitor your internet traffic and they're not seeing some of the same things, it's a red flag. And this website I mentioned about buying browser fingerprints, they're actually capturing your browser session and then just using that as essentially authentication. So you don't even necessarily need to know a username and password anymore to break into someone's life or use that maliciously on a site or to get into someone's account. And this stuff is so cheap and it's so easy to get. And once again, unfortunately, we just give all this stuff to people just by going to, for example, compromised websites or compromised pages, and they capture it all at that point. Now, I can tell you from a standpoint of when you really get away from what I consider like traditional open source intelligence, which is more so what this stuff is, it becomes much more difficult. And I can tell you that I don't even know that I would have enough skills at this point in my career to really do a lot of that advanced stuff, other than to sort of be able to explain it, to regurgitate it a little bit. But I don't know that I'd be able to go out and get a browser fingerprint or something like that from someone to identify him as a human. And that's simply because I don't have that data lake behind it to say, this is that guy, this person's pattern and this pattern doesn't match. That's where all those data brokers, they all saw this coming. Like all of them, they had some really, really super smart people that were part of those companies, and they saw all of this, back 10, 15 years ago, where they knew this environment was going to shift, that this is what's going to happen. And that's where I kind of made that joke about, if you're using a platform that's free and you're not paying for it, and that platform is amazing and just absolutely awesome, and that it gives you everything you want, they're selling you in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's, they might be presenting you with ads. Like I know a lot of podcasts, for example, they're all free because they're ad based and they make you listen to an ad. Or YouTube. YouTube's a great example, right? You can go out and watch movies on there for free, but you have to sit through ads. It's because they sell that space. So you are the consumer in that point. And that's where a lot of this open source intelligence, you can get so incredibly deep. We can probably talk in this for weeks or months and we wouldn't even really grab, everything to do with it. But I think you hit the nail on the head with that question, Kevin. You're 100% correct. A lot of the stuff that you see. And one more thing I want to mention too, that background check that you do, those are all from those data sources and those data brokers. So even like companies like Equifax, your credit card processing companies, they sell your information. Did you guys know that? So if you don't have your credit frozen right now, someone who pays for their service can query you as an individual, and they can get all of your credit information. So if you guys ever wondered why you kept getting all those mailers in your mailbox, it's because your credit's not frozen. They don't have the ability to not see it. So for example, something I talked about with a lot of people getting, when they want to become more and more private in their actual lives, that's one thing that they'll do is step one. It stops the bleeding. It doesn't fix the wound, but it stops the bleeding from there on out. And then when you talk about those data brokers, there's ways to have them remove your information. Like and I forget who runs this, but there's a tool out there called Clear, CLEAR. And this is the tool that governments use, that law enforcement use. I, as a user, I don't know if they would sell me a license. They might. I can make up a fake company and say I do this for a living or whatever. It's not cheap, but I can buy a platform. I can literally search and I can get everything all the way back to when you were born, birth records, every place where you've lived, all of your phone numbers that have ever been associated with you. And it's just because they've connected those spider webs together through simple open source intelligence. And even though it's paid, it really is just open source intelligence. They can tell you about usernames on social media, the car that you drove, last time you had insurance, stuff like that. It's absolutely insane what you can find out. But to your point about background checks too, there is a lot that you can find without actually paying for those background checks. In my personal opinion, I honestly feel like background checks are an overrated service, I think, for the most part, simply because you can get a lot of that information yourself just by doing OSINT.
So, can I ask, iOS versus Android security in terms of what is considered an open source platform, and how people see Google as using your data, because they don't sell a lot of hardware, but they have Chrome and all that stuff on there, versus iOS that sells a lot of hardware and don't monetize so much the software. How do you see that as a like if you want to hide your personality and stuff like that, or security? How do you see that?
So again, great question. Once again, I'm going to say that I don't really believe that there's a way to do it anymore. So the only truly effective way to hide you as a person, or to prevent your, your digital footprint or your digital fingerprint from getting sold or brokered or collected or stolen, is to simply not use those devices. And that's where, not in this talk, but I gave another talk about kind of the philosophy of really going down that road. And then, you think about people like that are in the middle of a backwoods in Canada, or they live in Alaska and they don't even have electricity. And this might be their thinking around there. The simple answer is there's not really a way to do that. When we're talking about companies that are large like Google and Apple, they in some way, shape, or form will end up selling your data in some way. Now they might sanitize the data to where they only truly give like usable points of information, meaning like this person clicks on this app this many times. To an app developer, I want to be like, well, which apps get all the clicks? And I want to know what they do. So sell me that information. They're not really giving you as a person, but they're still selling the information that you are using on your platform. I'll avoid the philosophical Android versus iPhone debate. I personally, for a good chunk of my life, I loved Android because I had the ability to crack it. I had the ability to load in a hotspot. And I can tell you right now, with seeing what you can do with simple exploit kits and everything else, I have gone completely Apple. I have definitely drank their Kool-Aid. And simply because even seeing stuff that's in the mainstream media, they don't give access to their code to anyone. They don't. So, for that little bit of, I guess, convenience in that mind. And I think both are great products. Like the Android platform is a great platform. It's open source, which means that if I'm a good exploit creator, or I know what I'm doing and I'm a hacker, I can sit here, go buy a device for $800, and I can spend the next 2 months pounding at this device and this OS and pull something out of it that'll allow me to compromise a lot more than I feel that you'd get from an iPhone. You just don't see a lot of iPhone exploits. And when you do see iPhone exploits, you know what they do? They patch it immediately, like that day. They figure out some way to patch it that day. So that's kind of what I'll say about the Android iPhone. But as far as really, the only effective way I know of is to, and I'll say there's two versions of this too. You can go totally, tinfoil hat cabin guy and completely go off grid and bury your money in the woods. You can do that, but I can tell you, I can't live without the internet. I wouldn't be able to do my job. I like the internet because it gives me a way to learn and be able to look at our meeting today. I'm connected with, I don't even know how many people in here. I would have never been able to do that. We're going to drive even during COVID into a room and meet. It'd be impossible. So I personally, like I said, I think it's a great thing. You just have to figure out what's right for you. If you ever do get that question posed to you, and how do I do that? That's literally the only way I know is to stop using that equipment and then figure out, where your data is being held and ask them to sanitize it. And that is also Michael Bazzell. There's I'll give you this too. So this is another one of his books too. I forgot what it's called. Was it Privacy? And I'll have to remember what it's called. I think it's called privacy.
It was like privacy and secrecy, anonymity, or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Extreme privacy. It's right on there. Look at that. So this is a really long, you'll notice it's 36 pages. There's only 3 pages of really the meat and potato stuff. The rest of that is literally worksheets. So you can keep track of what sites. I'll post this into this link is safe too, by the way. So if you guys get it, here it is. I'll put it in the chat. Is there another WebEx? I'll get it to you. I'm not seeing a way to get into chat from this little teeny WebEx box. Maybe this. No, I might have to do it when I'm outside of presenting. I'll get you the site. But long story short, all of this on here is just a way for you to keep track of what it is. But they'll literally, what Michael Bazel has done, it shows you what website, and then how to contact and how to get rid of your information. Now, this is not a good way to do this. I actually wrote up a document for my company because we started paying attention to some of the stuff that was happening inside. We wanted to give the best recommendations. So this page right here, and it ends up, I think, being a little bit more than, I think it's 10, but technically 12 right here. So there's this list right here is the best bang for your buck removals. These are those large data brokers. And these are the guys like Axiom and Intellis. I believe that's where they get, I think that's who owns Clear. It's one of those two. I can't remember which one. But LexisNexis, that's a huge, huge company. Same with Intellis, White Pages, Redaris, Spokio and My Life. They've been out for quite some time, and they kind of, they took over a lot of that space, I think in the 2000, roughly around the 2000 area. But if you really wanted to go that route, that's what I would tell you. You need to hit these first 10 or 12 right here, and then start slowly working through this entire list to really get yourself out of there. And I'm going to tell you it's not foolproof, because once again, you give out your information to someone, you might be good at holding your own privacy, but do you really want to trust your best friend or your family? Now, you can go that route and still keep somewhat anonymous. So what I usually train people to do in that case, like if you're giving out a phone number or something like that, oh, there's chat, Jesus, right in front of my face. When you go through and you do that stuff, you just tell your family members not to ever list you by name. Just put A or B or something else on there. That's what you can do. But I don't know of a way right now to do that. Good question. Very good question. Anyone have anything else?
The other one I have, if nobody chimes in yet, I'll wait.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. We can do another one.
So you remember the time when it's not Lyft, Uber, when they got caught with that back door that they were leaving on some of the phones and stuff like that, that even if you uninstall the app, it would still be reporting back to their server with some of your phone information and stuff like that.
So, though, the easiest way I can probably answer that is I can guarantee you a company like Uber more than likely did not intend on that being leveraged as an exploit. In working in the field I do and seeing how and again, if you guys are developers, I'm not bashing you. You guys are so smart and you guys have tons and tons of stuff to do, but a lot of the ones that you see like this, it always feels like something that was in a QA or a dev version of an application that just somebody forgot about. So I personally, if if someone really asked me, did Uber purposely do that? I would probably say no, because again, they're giving out data for free. I'm guessing it was probably just something that they didn't even realize was there. If you really want my opinion.
Okay. And what you think about the Cambridge Analytics stuff with Facebook?
Oh boy, you're gonna open a can of worms. We can sit here for the next 2 hours talking about that. Yeah, I mean that's so I can tell you I do use Facebook. I have removed myself on Facebook. I don't think you can find my information on Facebook anymore. I'm not a user. Like my username is completely not what I think I ended up bastardizing my first and last name. Like I just used the middle part. I don't even remember, but I made sure it was not easily identifiable to me, number one, and then I removed all my data. I can tell you that this is a hard one to answer because I do believe in data analytics. It is something that is near and dear and true to my heart, but you always have to remember that, and I know this is going to be a really terrible example. Hitler started out as good, right? But he ended up being a terrible scumbag and caused, World War II and one of the largest genocides of our entire, time. So it's really the more I think the better debate is not necessarily do we need stuff like Cambridge Analytica. I really do think we do, but we have to put people that are incredibly responsible and things in place and checks and balances to that type of information. So there, I forgot what it was. There was something on Netflix that I watched. Some social. I didn't get through the whole thing. I got through like quarter or 30% of it, but it actually showed the impact on social media and how they can actually, like my trailer tire thing. They predicted that that's what I needed. It's not because I ever looked for it or they had, tapped my microphone. It's because they predicted based on what I search and what I look at that they have a very high probability to guess at what I'm going to be interested in or guess what ads I'd be, responsible for. So do I think that data is absolutely awesome? I do. But at the same time, we got to put people that are responsible in front of it. And really, they need to become the gatekeepers. I mean, I don't know. I had someone ask me the other day if the reason why, and again, I'm not here to talk politics. If you guys are fans of him or not, but someone asked me if Donald Trump was put into office from Cambridge Analytica, and do you think the Russians actually did the hack, or was it just Cambridge Analytica? And I said, I don't know. I can tell you that I think the Russians had some involvement, but I don't know that they necessarily placed them there. I think it was more because they leveraged the data that was available and they really played toward, the marketing on Facebook. And this goes into a whole other debate, even on OSINT or how social media gets presented to people. Like think about, I don't know if you guys all have daughters or kids or, where your ages sit, but it makes me sick to think that if my daughter had a Facebook account right now, that Facebook in some way in shape or form influence my daughter to do something or feel something or, move a certain way for a certain political party or TV show. Like I just can't fathom it. And I don't like that part of it, even though I just said I love data and I love analytics because I like hunting the bad people. And I don't think that a lot of the stuff that's in that same data lake, that's where the bad people sit too, unfortunately. But I don't know. I don't know if it's ever going to go away or be restricted at this point. We're so inbred and involved in the internet and the social media age that I really don't see it going away. And I think um, I, I would guess to say that if people thought that Cambridge Analytica that was the only instance of Facebook using it, I really think that people are sorely mistaken. There's other companies out there that I guarantee that are labeled as something completely different, and all they do is they do data brokering and data analytics. Good questions.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for the answers.
Hopefully, I answered them. I feel like half the time I never answer them right.
No,
Just rambling.
following along very well. Thank you.
But yeah, I know we're a little bit over it. I just looked at the time. We're at 10 o'clock. I planned. Do you guys want to stay and do some labs really quick? They're super simple. I actually didn't have anything planned in here as far as labs, but I want you guys to actually go out and do a simple Google search and then actually try and use Google hacking. And I'll sit on here and try and help you guys.
Yeah, let's do the some of the labs.
Yeah, go for it.
So what I want you guys to look for, so for you guys that live in your company, and I'll give you, well, actually, maybe we'll just make it all simple. Give me 1 second. So like I said, I usually open it up and I say, just go search for something. Let's do, oh, you know what? I know what we can do. That's right. I forgot. We did talk about this, Otha. So totally forgot about that. I can't believe I forgot about that. So I actually prepared what I call a CTF for another presentation for the dark web stuff. This is all on the clear web. All right. So here's what I want you guys to try and find. See if you guys can get this one. So this one might be a little bit more difficult. That is an onion link. Do not go on the dark web to that link. It is awful. Then I'll give you guys this. Where did I put that picture?
And while Nick is searching for that, I just kind of want to say something I've said before regarding individuals that have used OSINT as far as the part of the job prep. That we did have an individual get a job based upon OSINT. He used Have I Been Pawned and Open Bug Bounty and found information about an employer that he was interviewing with, and he was able to get a job just by saying that he knew that the guy that he was interviewing with, the manager that his username and password was on a dark web, and that the website for the corporation had cross-site scripting vulnerabilities unpatched since 2014. Right, and this guy had no experience whatsoever in cybersecurity, but he used OSINT as that tool to bridge that gap.
Otha, I'm going to email you a zip file. If you can shoot the zip file out to the group. I don't know if I have the whole group's emails anywhere.
Okay. How big is the zip file?
120 kilobytes. It's teeny. It's just
Okay.
a small picture. It is actually, oops, subject. Glad you reminded me. I totally forgot about that. We talked about that on Saturday, and I totally blew it. Sounds about right, though. It's about my MO. So we talked about, and I guess this might not be that much fair. So I'll give you guys 2 hints. So Hunchly's actually so you remember how we talked about the process or how to kind of do your searching and your hunting? Hunchly is actually, and I hope you guys at least type this into Google, but Hunchly is OSINT software. And what it does, so I can tell you that I used to what I call roughing it, which is taking snapshots, grabbing text, and then putting it into like a OneNote file, similar to like this. This is one of them I use. There's a whole bunch of junk that I use for research. It's not efficient at all. And what Hunchly does is once you spin this tool up, it actually lives in your browser. It's a browser extension, and it literally captures every single URL that you go to. And then you can also click inside to add notes. You can capture text. You can capture pictures. You can look at EXIF data all directly from this platform. It is absolutely an amazing platform. It's very inexpensive too. And I don't mean to say that it's not worth using. This is what the FBI and most of the 3-letter agencies have. There is one alternative, but it is absolutely terrible. I do not like using it at all. I paid for this myself personally just because of all the stuff that I do for OSINT outside of my work. But if you guys are interested, I know 129 is a pretty large cap. You can try the 30-day trial. The guy that actually created the software is absolutely amazing. I might be able to reach out and see if we can get maybe a couple licenses. Maybe we can give them out to some people if they're interested. I'll see if I can do that. But so I'll walk you through this one. So this is the what does Hunchly say the site is? So inside of Hunchly, and this is where I neglected to really go into this because, again, we went through a lot of information. But Huntly actually has a resource where they use a scraping tool to actually go out and grab every single dark web email or dark web URL that's out there. So it almost does like a ping response. So basically they'll start off at like, 0.onion, and then they just iterate up and they keep going up and up and up and up and up until they find one that responds. And once it responds, they have an app that goes in, takes a snapshot, and then they nicely write, some type of synopsis. So here's what I get every single day. And this is a free service, by the way. Anyone can sign up if you go into dark web mailing list right here. I don't know if that's too small for you guys to see, but it's free and it's absolutely amazing. And what you do is you get a report. So if you go inside of this report, and I'm going to preface this right now, there is some inappropriate wording on here, and I don't know if you guys are sensitive to some of that stuff. When we start talking about the dark web, if I can tell you that the worst possible thing that you can ever imagine, straight up until murdering, rape, any of that, it's there. If you work in the dark web long enough, you are going to find it and eventually not have a clean conscience after that. So part of using this list is so you don't have to do a lot of that terrible searching. They'll actually tell you on here, hey, this is, some type of, awful sales of small humans. Like this one is some Grafana instance and a chemical tutorial. That doesn't necessarily mean like this could be a drug tutorial. Chemical tutorials are pretty innocuous. But if you look at the whole main list, they establish this list literally every single day and they add to it. There are thousands and thousands of entries in this thing. I think they're up to like, there's still more, 4,300 right now. Those are all the active sites. I mean, you can just take a look at some of the stuff that's on here. Adult, some type of adult site, warning. Usually when you see warnings like this, you should not go to them. Let's see, secure drop. So this is where probably a dark web source for some newspaper. Let's see if there's anything else interesting in here. Didn't look at this today yet either. 8kun, that's another interesting site. There's a lot of unfortunate adult stuff on here, and usually it's not great. Amazon gift cards. So if you guys want to go buy Amazon gift cards, there's right there. U.S. Pharmacy. So this is most likely a drug exchange. I don't know what that is. Torpay. So this is an interesting one. This is essentially a service that you would pay for. Like, for example, if you're a hacker or a developer and a pile of garbage threat actor and you create a horrible virus or malware or phishing kit, you'll go to what they call an intermediary that you'll give your stuff to, and then he or she will put it up online for sale in a forum for you, thus air gapping you. And what they'll use, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bitcoins or using any of that online currency or digital currency. They usually will also employ what they call coin tumbling at some point in this chain too. So it's incredibly difficult to track a lot of the stuff back. But this is essentially a fence for someone that's trying to sell illegitimate stuff. But to this point, hopefully this makes sense to you guys. And all you would have to do is take this and search for it.
Hey Nick, I didn't get that email yet.
Oh no. Did send. Maybe it doesn't like a zip file.
Yeah, probably so. And what we could do as well, because I know we have some international students as well. I can set up a box where you can give it to me, and then what we can do is kind of do a part 2.
Yeah, I want to say that one because I actually spent a lot of work putting the stuff into this photo. So I can tell you the photo is not exactly straightforward. I can tell you that at all.
Okay.
But as far as doing, yeah, I'll get you that too. We can definitely do that. But in here, we just search for it and boom. So this is a secure gift card, dark market for gift cards. I know I kind of took all the fun out of doing this one. I'll give you guys more if you guys want to do them. This was one that we just had specific for the dark web. So I'll give you guys this one, and I don't know if the symbols are going to. Oh, they do. All right. Nope, they do not. All right, so let me take a picture of this. I don't know if you can paste pictures in here. No, you cannot. Ugh. Both we need to talk about WebEx. Well, so just throw this in there. So this is actually something to search for, and it's something that part of that dark web working group we actually embedded some stuff in there. So this is a bread symbol, and then obviously an eye, a mouth, and an eye. See if you guys can find anything with this. See what you guys can do with this. So I'll give you a little bit of a hint. Let's get this bread, and tell me what you guys can find. This is still up too, huh? Oh, here you go. You guys want to buy some US fake IDs for those high school kids? On the dark web and really tear some stuff up. How you guys doing with that one? Good, bad. Anybody find anything yet?
I think some people are wondering,
How we
yeah, what to do first, right? So, is it to use like the in text or all in text for let's get this bread to see what pops open, and then use that to start the investigation to figure out, okay, what does this phrase mean?
So remember what I told you guys? What's the very first thing that I always do? What do I always use? The Google search bar, right?
Yep.
So if we just do that's where I would start. And then I would kind of poke through. So this is more truly, what you guys will find on an open source intelligence. Now, hint I'll give you, and this is a big hint, is it's on a form. And the reason why I tell you that is because you can usually take a good example, like, and if I'm not mistaken, too, I showed you this. So this symbol, you want to take everything at face value, meaning, do you see this symbol, like, or let's get this bread, or maybe the eye and the the whatever, the lips and then the other eye. Use what you can. You got to use the data that you're presented. So, for example, we just did a simple Google search, right? Let's get this bread. You could start off by going to images and just seeing what's out there. And again, this is not very specific, but you might find something in here that might point you to the right direction. Granted, you're going to have to sift through it for a little bit. Or the other option you can do is start using that in text. So if you did in text,
why in text and not in sight?
you could do that one too. I just have not gotten great results using that off the bat. I usually start with in text and then all in text.
Okay.
And like I said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. If you want to start with Insight, you can absolutely start with Insight. So,
no, I was thinking that phrase, "Let's get this bread," would be in the site, like literally a phrase in a site.
Yep. So you are absolutely correct. But now the question is, which site?
Oh, so you have to specify what site.
Correct. So when when you use like Insight or in URL, so for example, you have to do oh crap, I can't think of anything outside of the answer. Let's see. Gmail.com. Nothing, right?
Oh, okay.
So you could have done, and then the other one, and like I said, Insight's a little temperamental for me, which is why I like using in URL. I can't remember. I think Insight, you have to use like the root domain. Like, for example, if I had like points.ulta.com, this is a subdomain, but in URL will still hit this one versus Insight, the site it's on is actually ulta.com. So it leads, like I said, it's not, it is definitely an art form when you do this stuff. So don't let me sway you. If you want to start with Insight, hammer it home, because I've never found great results using Insight, but that doesn't mean that, down the road, if I found nothing, I wouldn't start using things that I don't normally use.
Is in URL specifically to that text in the URL?
Yep. So let's try Twitter, for example. And look at that. We get some, let's get this bread.
Okay.
So you could try, let's try it. I haven't used Insight in a while. So,
Good.
yeah, still gets you nothing.
I didn't get much. No.
Let's try removing the quotes and see what it's. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at. I'm sure I'm not using the operator right. Like I said, I've never had tons of luck with using Insight. In URL is the one that I usually use a lot. And again, just be cautious with using in URL, because you're limiting yourself to one place. So usually, and that's why I tell you guys to start big, meaning start really broad, use that basic Google search, go through some of those pages, check out the pages on the first page. You might even find stuff on there. And just know that it's something to do with like RH ISAC. So again, this is a little bit skewed, but I want you guys to struggle a little bit before I start giving you more and more hints. But again, there's no right way to do it. You can also even flip this. So for example, you could say in URL, twitter.com, and then don't use an in text or an all in text. And let's say we want to look for, let's look for me. Oh, this is my doppelganger. This guy's actually pretty funny. So there's a guy that lives in California, and he is a talent manager. I've actually talked to this guy a couple times. So I have n.light at live.com. He has n.light2 at live.com. I have n.light2 at Gmail, and he has n.light at Gmail. So I fat fingered sending myself something, and he saw the email and he's like, "Did you send me this?" So this is just another way to get, differently or oddly refined results. This is one other way. So this is still the name, and it's in the URL I specified. So once again, this doesn't do me any good because this isn't me, but it's another point of data. And the other thing too, so I want to show you guys this too. And like I said, this is so much information. So if you guys' brains are full, I know at some point they're going to be, but there is also, and I don't want to confuse you guys, but if you use like Bing or DuckDuckGo, they don't necessarily use the same operators. So for example, let's do Bing. Let's do the same search. Let's look at Twitter. There we go. So it takes you right in there. Whereas this search, like doing a Google search, might not give you the same results, or it'll give you completely different results that mean absolutely nothing. Like this. I don't understand why nude pictures would have anything to do with my name. Or Nick Fuentes. Makes no sense. So try using Bing, try using DuckDuckGo. Yandex is another really good one. I'll throw those in there. Let me see if I can find this site quick too to make sure it should still be there. Wouldn't that be funny? Give you guys a CTF and it's not even up. Be the ultimate OSINT prank.
You just be keeping us on our toes. That's all.
We spent so much more time. I'm actually afraid to admit how much time we spent on this CTF question. Oh, yeah, it's still up. Nice. It's definitely still up.
Hey, Nick, while they're doing this, do you also want to talk about some of the nonprofit organizations that benefit from OSINT?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So there's a few really good organizations. There's one that is remarkably easier to get into than the other one. And I'm happy to talk to you guys about either of them. There's one that I started off with, and again, this is just more. I know I talked to a lot of you guys last time. I don't know who was there, but about my upbringing through IT and how I kind of landed in the role I did. And one of the things that I always do is I always try and pay it forward and try and find some way to help out somewhere else. And I know I let you guys know I was in the medical field before, and that was directly helping a patient. So what I wanted to try and do is figure out some way to use some of the skills that I've gotten for good. And there's a couple different places you can go. Trace Labs is a really good one. And the nice thing I like about Trace Labs, oops, that is not what I was thinking for. So Trace Labs is an organization that allows, and they host, or I guess they do CTFs, but they actually use live people data. So for example, if you're a missing person, and they don't just take any request for a missing person or an exploited person, like if they found someone that was exploited on the internet somehow, they'll put that up for a CTF. But if it has some type of law enforcement stamp to it, like an actual, I don't know what they call it, like a project ID or something. I don't know what they call them, but they can get into the CTF. And basically what you do is when they host these CTFs, they'll give you like 4 or 5 missing people. And you basically get points on finding anything related to them on the internet. So for example, one of the first, actually, I have never participated in this from the contestant side. I've only judged, but you basically judge the open source intelligence. That's where a lot of, I would probably say start there, because you can say you want to judge and you don't have to, hop in totally, or if you're just not sure what to expect. I will tell you that everyone on there is super friendly. They're absolutely amazing people. And like I said, all these people are donating their time to do it. It is an absolutely awesome experience to do it from a judge's side too. I'm sure you've heard me say this before, but I'm a lazy and selfish individual. And I also like getting knowledge for free. And that's what I saw it as. So when I participated as a judge, I kind of said, well, how the heck did they get this data? And then I started looking at their, what they looked at or how they got to it. And it actually made me be a little bit better at doing OSINT. This was early on. I think I've been with Trace Labs for a little bit over a year. I haven't done a lot recently, and that's because I shifted to one of their sister organizations called Operation Safe Escape. I believe they're in the process of being rebranded for Go Ask Rose. That's it. But this organization deals with basically anyone that's in a situation to where they either need to escape a bad situation, they're being abused, they're being spied on, stalked. I mean, a lot of it, unfortunately, is women and kids. There's some men. I haven't really dealt with a lot of the men, but I can say anything that happens that you can think of on the, the gender specific sides, they happen on the other one. This is one that is absolutely near and dear to my heart because some of the stuff that you see on here is just, it's so bad. It's awful. But like I said, at one point in your careers, when you start dealing with OSINT and dark web and all that, I guess I had a different upbringing than most because I was a paramedic and I saw some of like the armpit of America, or maybe the butt crack of America is the better version I can give you. But it makes me feel a little bit better that I was able to help someone, or at least, give them a little bit of an insight into being a little bit more safe. I can tell you, and I know for those that were on, the last talk, I wouldn't be sitting here if a few people took me under their wing and started teaching me some of this stuff. I would not be sitting here at all. But OSC is a good one. The only thing I'll tell you with Operation Safe Escape, they are a little bit slow to get back for volunteers. It's because this is a volunteer-led organization. I don't even know if we actually have a single actual paid employee. It's a nonprofit, and we do background checks as well as a full OSINT investigation. So I don't remember if that was Kevin or I don't know who SJ is, but they have the SJ, I think 11188. One of you guys had asked that question about
Yeah, it was me.
background checks.
It was me about the background check. It makes sense. I was just kind of wondering because it's mostly like nowadays if you are in a company and say you post something on social media and there's obviously people watching and checking what we're doing, right? You work for an enterprise organization, we know there's many of them out there and say, you post something that's internal, that's confidential, who's checking that stuff, right?
Yep.
So you leave that I mean, we obviously know that there's people that kind of learn the hard way, right? And they end up losing their, jobs because they gotta like figure it out the hard way. But we know common sense wise, but I was just kind of curious of like, what people don't know, and they do something. I mean, it's catching people at a lot of different levels too, because some people get jobs and they get they go and they get the offer and acceptance and everything, and then they find out, a couple years into it, they'll find out that somebody, has ties to, and I know you guys probably remember this. There was a guy that was in Utah, and he had ties. He was ties to the neo Nazis, and they found out because he had remember he had a record where somebody found a picture on the internet. It was like an OSINT type of thing where it came back and in his past caught up with him, but no one knew. And it was a company like a startup. It was a successful startup, and he had to step down as CEO. So, this stuff is out there. I mean, we all got a past, and who knows what people can dig up. I was just kind of curious of like with companies, doing what they do to protect the, their corporate identity, the brand and everything. And plus, if you're putting out, I used to work for video games, and if that kind of stuff gets out, like you're publishing the, things before the game's release and stuff like that, that's just an automatic you're going to get, let go, and then you're blacklisted kind of from the industry on that. That's all. I'm just kind of curious on some of that
You're
stuff.
100% right. I mean, if you mentioned that those C-level executives too, those are incredibly public employment opportunities for people. And that I would say that I think it is slightly unethical to judge someone based on something they've done in the past, especially I'm always for reform. I got a bad rap in the medical industry because, we look at people that are repeat offenders or those people that always get sent to the hospital. I never treated them different. Once in a while I'd give them the hard talk and be like, come on, man, you got to stop this. You're going to die. But for the most part, I try and believe in the good in people still, even though I know I always look at it from the bad points. But I don't know it like someone at my level being a complete peon. I don't know that even OSINT would even. I would think there would be some relevance for it being almost unethical to use some of that stuff, simply because people didn't understand when I was growing up what to put in there. I know if I left my Facebook up and I'd be running for president, I would not be running for president.
Well, yeah, they dig up some stuff that we all know that is kind of incredible. They'll go back to a childhood girlfriend and then ask
Yep.
something or boyfriend and come up with something.
I think a lot of it nowadays
on
is the
record.
companies. Like I know my company doesn't do it directly. Like I've never been asked to do a research or an investigation into a pre-hire. They have
Right.
very specific companies that'll do that for you, and we basically say. And again, I don't know how this is done. I'm just giving an example, but they could say, we don't want A, B, and C, and not that it's inclusion or exclusion, but they might be looking for red flags of certain behaviors, like if they're I don't know, an abuser or something like that. That's all I can think of after talking about OSE, but that might be like a red flag or something about that. I don't know, but I know the companies that we hire are the ones that make those hiring decisions based on what we tell them, is acceptable or not acceptable.
Yeah, what I was mentioning is this guy, CEO of Banjo. He resigned after hidden neo-Nazi uh, past surfaces, and it's an interesting article because it goes back to the OSINT and kind of like his past kind of caught up with him, but it's just kind of interesting like how you don't realize how deep like the Wayback Machine and all that kind of stuff. Like people think what I do is kind of just for now. They don't understand that you can go back and look it up if you really wanted to and you knew how. And I guess
Yep.
how does that play into your OSINT framework, like the using a Wayback Machine? Have you ever had to go like that far back
Oh
or
yes.
something
Oh
crazy?
yes, I have.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's a good one too.
Yeah.
I usually try to avoid, like I said, that presentation's enough too. But you could even go back as far as to looking at some archival. What the hell was I looking at in here? Oh, I remember this. This was a absolutely horrible credential phishing campaign. I wanted to see if this thing was used other places, but you can use this platform to actually view something from far, far away. Some of the stuff I'll tell you is archived in subscription, but they'll at least give you a little bit of an insight. But this is another archival record of certain sites or certain things. So if you had a website that was back in like the 2005 era, you could probably find it on here. Let's see. I don't know if we can look up something quick. Let's try. So look at that. There's LimeWire. You guys are as old as me. So these are all snapshots of what they had. Let's see. We're using it in 2001. So here's the actual LimeWire site. They scraped the whole site. But yeah, I mean, this is a perfect example of, the interesting difficulty of making yourself truly anonymous when you really can't be. I mean, I've never look and see if this Facebook has on here. Let's see if I can find myself in here. Probably not. 2008. Let's say August. Yeah, it didn't archive the URL for searching, just general data. So this is a good point to point out too. So some of the stuff is relatively difficult. Like there might be something that you see is really cool and it looks really neat to have all that stuff on there, or this might be part of the paid side. So I'll get that a lot with my intelligence. I do like for phishing. Like I don't know if you guys deal with phishing at all or deal with that kind of side of the house and security, but this website is absolutely phenomenal. Like you can scrape out a web page's code, dump the code snippet in here, and tell every other page. So for someone that tattooed or marked a URL or a URI in a web page for credential phishing, I can have this site pull every single one of them out. But they only give you the first 10 results if you don't pay. And then if you don't get to the right tier, they only give you 25 results. So it's defeating, but it's cool. So some of this stuff is neat. But yeah, the Wayback Machine's pretty good either way. You can get some pretty good information from here. How you guys doing on that? You guys find anything? Has anyone found any? Somebody give me a thread.
And I just got the email. I was going to send it out with the zip file.
My favorite meme. Anybody think they have something that would be willing to walk me through what they got? Even if you think it's nothing, don't be embarrassed. There's no right answer. There's no wrong searching. Oh, thanks for that website, Kevin. Oh man, banjo. Oh, that had to have sucked. Oh wow. It's crazy how a typo. Simply a typo to hide your name. Wonder what he's doing now. Let's see what he's doing now.
So I just sent out the that zip file. Now, was that zip file supposed to have the emojis in it as well? Because it was a different picture.
No, it's a totally different picture. It should look like this. So I think this was the first iteration that ended up getting broken.
Okay.
But it is a variation of this photo. And what I want you to do is I want you to tell me where this building is located. And if you can, and I know this might be a stretch for you guys that don't know RHISAC, so I'll at least give you this. You can tell me how does this building associate to RHISAC? This was meant to be the hardest challenge. Just so you guys know, is this picture one. As I left several not great leads in this. And I've also modified it just enough to where it makes it difficult.
All right, Nick, just for full transparency, someone in text me saying they didn't want to be YouTube famous by being wrong. So I'm going to use myself as an example. I forgot that we record and we've been trying to post it online on YouTube. So what I started, you mentioned about something about being in the forum. So in my mind, I thought it was Reddit. And then I'll use the combination of in text, let us get this bread, trying to figure out what does it mean, Urban Dictionary, slang, and things of that nature. Then I went down the path of what if it's an Umojo, maybe I can find a file type with let's get this bread, right? So then I started going down this rabbit hole of figuring out what's the file extension for an Umojo so I can do file type colon and whatever the extension is. And then I started playing around in URL, Reddit, and well, maybe if it's not, since it's a forum, let me see something that's in the URL or in the text that is let's get this bread, and then in the URL of forum, maybe it'll come up with forum.com, yada yada yada. So I didn't find anything that I thought was relevant. And I don't know if anybody else had a better time at it than that.
Anybody get any further?
So I'm assuming not.
Okay, so here, let's walk through it a little bit.
All right.
So from a perspective of any time you're ever given that OSINT, remember what the first thing I said to do? Don't just dive into it like I'm about to do now. You should put it on that sheet of paper or your dry erase board, at least to start with. You don't absolutely have to end up doing that as your process permanently. I'm in the habit of not doing it anymore because I use Hunchly, which I didn't tell you guys to do because, again, way too much information already. So usually what I do is exactly what I told you guys. I will go to some search, some search bar or some search thing, and I will literally just dump it straight in there. So I put, let's get this bread. And I got almost junk, right? So we look through Urban Dictionary, probably can't really modify all that much in Urban Dictionary, but it's worth maybe clicking into. Not really all that useful. Let's yeet this wheat. That's awesome. Urban Dictionary again. Let's see what this one is. So this is what I want you guys to see. So this is where you start pivoting. So did you notice what I did as a search term? So look at the difference in this search term. So do you see the apostrophe S? So for example, I didn't put the apostrophe S in there. You guys think we can put the apostrophe S? Who knows? So we had 277 million. Oh, I called that billion too. I'm going to look like a genius on YouTube. So a little bit less, 258 million, but it's still not great. So at this point, personally, what I would do is I would start diving in some images, and this would be my second or third pivot point, and I would just quickly glance and see if I saw, because again, I gave you guys that bread and then mouth and eye. I just want to see if it's stuck somewhere, if it's a meme or if it's a logo. Just real quick. And usually going down all the way into this is not, you don't need to. A lot of the times when you look at this stuff, usually the most relevant ones are stuff that's in, most of the websites. And then I'll also take a look at the sites that are coming up here. And then you'll notice that, hey, look at this. Reddit. So I might have clicked on Pinterest just to see if there's something to pivot down or there's a username I can get to this, but I would have eventually come to like Reddit on here. Then maybe this will give us something. I don't know if this will get us into there or not. So this one was actually deleted, and this was in OK Gamers. Let's get this bread, and it was in dank memes. So now what I would have done, it would have sparked me to go, well, hey, what can I find on Reddit with this? So I would have went back to all, and then I would have done bikini bottom Twitter. Oh God, I hope this is not bad. I'm going to apologize now if I click into something that's horrible. So hopefully you have your eye sanitizer with you. So bikini bottom Twitter. I don't know what the heck this is. This is something SpongeBob related. I've never heard SpongeBob say, let's get this bread. So I'm going to keep going down. Same one. That was the same one. Why did this one show me a different? This is actually a really funny one. If you guys ever get a chance, you go look at it. It's hilarious. So start looking around. And again, this doesn't seem to be related to anything with bread. It is purely cars. So I would have spent 10 seconds and backed out. CVS Reddit. I don't know how that has anything to do with other than that phrase. So this is not helping me really that much. So I'll give you guys a hint. It is on Reddit, but notice how this is not helping. So I know that this is a good forum. We saw some good stuff in there. So usually what I do at this point when I'm not really finding good things that are relevant, I will either do one of two things. I will either go straight to in-text, and then I will put in everything without the quote or the punctuation. And I'll start to see if I can find this exact phrase somewhere. So let's get this read. Same Urban Dictionary, BuzzFeed. These are memes. I might even do, is there anything in Twitter? So this one is some B, bread making place. And again, I'm trying to purposely fumble. So this might not look, this looks like a whole bunch of craziness that I'm just clicking on, but this is literally what I would do for one of these. And I just try and find, something along. So let's get this bread. This definitely looks like some type of sham. So I'm guessing that this person is probably committing fraud on some way, shape, or form. 20-minute process for legit money. I find that hard to believe. So once again, this isn't really doing all that much for me, right? So we tried a little bit. We tried plain in text. So now this is really where I would shift to that all in text. I want to force it to look for that exact phrase. So let me ask you one more thing before I go a little bit further too. So if you were a researcher and you got some type of data from someone and you're not really finding anything, what would you guys really do? And this is a good question to ask because I can tell you from doing this research pretty much on a daily basis, I don't feel bad when I don't find anything anymore, even though it bothers me personally. But the reason I asked this question to you guys, it's okay to go back to the person that said, hey, can you see what else you can find here? Because they might not have given you everything. So just know that if you get a piece of data and you're looking for intelligence on it, you could potentially go back to even the person that handed you that piece of data and say, hey, I know you gave me this, but do you have any associations? I'm having a hard time, getting any type of pivoting or pinpointing. I think it's probably an X, Y, and Z, but I need a little bit more to enrich the data for you. Do you have anything else? And they might come back with like the one thing that they should have given you in the original part of, hey, this is a meme, or this is a forum or a group or something like that. So just because we talked about, doing this open source intelligence and becoming a good person at searching, don't feel like you don't have to go back, that you can't go back and potentially ask for more help. So this doesn't give us all that much. Not seeing anything, this is all pretty much innocuous. So this is where I get a little bit creative. If I'm looking at a phrase and I'm looking at a logo, like that bread and those two eyes and the lips stick out. And I know there's not really a way. I don't think you can type in bread eye. Maybe there is. I doubt it though. Yeah, you'd have to paste the actual. I guess let me try that. I've never. So pull out the presentation again. So I know you guys didn't have this because it didn't come through, but you could potentially even take this phrase, paste it right into there. So this gets you a little bit more. So you'll notice that Google kind of already removed some of this stuff. So look at this. See this? Doesn't that kind of stick out? There's a whole ton of emojis. Now these are missing those up there, so I probably would not have clicked too much into these because we already went into Urban Dictionary. This is just a meme site, but hey, this one looks interesting. Garlic bread memes. So this one is in the emoji pasta. So can anyone guess what my next step would have been right here? Take a random guess. I'm literally telling you, there's no wrong answer. You will not get shamed at all. So we came back to Reddit now 3 times. So what would you think to do at this point? And if you guys don't know what Reddit is, the R and the /, this is a group.
So maybe you're going to search that Reddit group.
Tell me everything that it has. So we're in memes, PMS for sale, whatever that is. Good Lord. So I'm not seeing anything that really sticks out. Let's get the spread, spud mode. The one thing I'll say is the original one I gave you guys had that bread emoji, right? So I'm still looking for emojis or things I'm not seeing on here. So the next thing I would have done, there's an actual site. So there's a group inside of Reddit. Anybody see it already?
Yes, the top.
This is actually me. Ready or not. So this is just an example of what we did. So does this hopefully make sense? I know we kind of cheated and cut corners a little bit. This one honestly should have taken someone about 20 minutes. But that's kind of the premise. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. I would say try that picture one. I'll give you guys a couple hints. If you guys want to shoot me emails too, I'll try and give you guys individual hints. You will have to use some type of picture viewer. Don't forget, and did I send it? Did you get that presentation with it? I sent the presentation. So,
I got the picture and the zip file. I didn't get the presentation. Let me check.
The other ones, it's 2 megabytes. It might still be getting scanned too.
Okay.
It's super slow, and so is Outlook. But use the presentation, and all I'm going to say is remember what we talked about image intelligence. And I want you guys to do some research. I really didn't give you a lot of tools here. So I'm going to give you a couple hints. So we talked about metadata and EXIF, EXIF. Right now, I want you guys to type that into your browser. Maybe do EXIF viewer or metadata viewer, something along those lines. That's the hint I'm going to give you to start with. And then if you guys want help, email me. If you want to text me, I'll throw my cell phone somewhere for you guys if you want my cell phone. But try and struggle through that one. This one is a much, much more difficult one. Oh, that guy's going to have a bad day. But other questions? So try and get that picture taken a look at. I guess maybe instead of having you guys totally struggle, let's do this. Okay, copy it. So I'll cheat a little bit with you guys. So there are viewers online. There are some that are better than others. And there are some that you need to be careful with. And this is the other reason I wanted to go through it. There's some of these that actually have really, really crummy web pages that come up, or ads, and they're not ads, it's malware. So if you go into one of these and it posts up like update your Facebook or your browser, don't click on anything. Like if you didn't do it yourself through Firefox or Chrome or Internet Explorer, you should not be having your browser tell you that just so word of advice. So this one, I don't know if I can drag this picture in, which it won't let me. So, poop. All right, here's another one we can look at. Yandex. And this is, so the other common one is reverse image search. So TinEye is a good one. And honestly, the real reason I'm showing you guys this is not really to fool me and I hope you get the photo I'm doing. The real reason why I'm trying to teach you this stuff in the way that I'm doing it is because when you start creating sock puppets, these are all the tools you're going to have to use to make sure your sock puppet does not get called out. So here's another. I'm going to click and drag Brian in here and watch what happens. 0 matches. Why is this important? Why is it important that my sock puppet has no matches online to this face? So I'll give you another example. I'll give you a little bit of help. Let's say we went to, that's not a good one. Just go to.
So yeah, no cross references or image matches in any other stock photos, nothing like that.
Good, right? Because what's the simple thing that most people do when they create a bad account? They just grab any picture they want and they don't understand how things work. So for example, that you were dead on. So let's go to, oh yeah, you have no friend selections because I don't go to anyone's stuff. Let's go to this person who's going to be our unwanting victim. So Joss Herrera. Let's look at this guy's webpage, profile. Let's see if we can get a picture of his face. So here's a clear picture of his face. Let's download this. Save. Save. Why is this doing this to me? Oh, there we go. All right, so let's look at TinEye one more time. So 0. So this tells us that this person, this is an original photo of this person. So this goes both ways. Like you can still use a stock photo. Like if I really wanted to steal this guy's face, I could do it. So part of image intelligence is knowing if you have a doctored photo. So that, and again, that's a whole other conversation to get into, but believe it or not, to do real efficient sock puppet accounts, this is a photo that I modified in GIMP. So this photo is actually flipped. And then I also modified his pupils simply to evade any type of checking that Yandex, TinEye, Google reverse image. This to all of those things does not have the same fingerprint. And when we talk about a fingerprint, it's just like a fingerprint on your hand. So every file has a certain hash, every photo has a certain hash, and they all take that into account. And when you modify the data on here, it changes that. You can't find it. So typically when you find a photo that's never been on anywhere else, you can probably assume it's most likely a good photo. Now, the one bad downside is that for people like me that do this and use sock puppet accounts, I can tell whether these accounts are really shill accounts and sock puppet accounts because I haven't posted anything since July 13th. I've not been active. I just did the bare minimum to get this guy to pass Facebook's muster, and then I've logged in a couple times. And every time I log in, what I will do is I'll try and go to friends, and then I will search for groups. So I'll do something like a baking group. Look for a baking group. This one looks pretty good. Let's like it. I like this. And this is enough to keep Facebook off my butt because I'm not acting like a bot. I'm acting like a real human with real use of this Facebook account. So this is one of my longest lasting Facebook accounts, actually. I burned through these pretty quickly with one shape or form or another. And a lot of it is because I end up burning these are all backstop to email addresses. And I usually end up burning the email addresses, and I don't want to touch the sock puppet at that point because if I mess up with my IP address, a lot of the times when I use these personas, I'm not looking for things that are good. Like I'm looking for, scumbags. So like this is a perfect example. This is the searches that he did. These were the last searches, and believe it or not, this is one. I don't even know if this is still up. Ah, damn it, they got back up. Oh, so this is one. This is a group that essentially sells services to compromise Ulta using points, stolen points. And this is a closed group. I tried to get in here a couple times. I got in once and I got flagged almost immediately. I have another account from Twitter that I use to tie to these guys too, but I have not been able. This is the only place I can find anything to do with Angel McCall, the Clubhouse 2. And I'm going to warn you right now, do not search for that phrase. Do not search for the Clubhouse 2. I didn't show you that to make a joke. I'm not joking. You do not look for the Clubhouse 2. Please just don't. If you do, it's on your own cognition. But there's not, I feel like they specifically use this name for the reason why I'm telling you not to search it. It goes to pretty horrible, hardcore stuff. And I think that's why they use this phrase, because they're backstopping their group. Whoever this person is, Angel McCall. And the other funny thing too, whoever this threat actor is, this sock puppet here, because this is not a real name that I can find. They actually have, and I don't even know if you can see it. It's 100% private now. They used to have some of the admins that they would allow to share some of the conversations from the admins. I actually mapped out all of the admins up until this person has two personas on here. It was Angel McCall and another one. And they used to almost picture themselves as either like boyfriend, girlfriend, or married, but they had the tone of the tweets, or not the tweets, but the postings on Facebook. They were almost identical, and the mannerisms and also the misspellings that they would do, or the poor English. So this tells me that whoever's running this one, first of all, it's just so you guys know who aren't in threat intel space, this is uber rare. Like you just don't see this type of activity on Facebook because it usually gets flagged immediately. And I brought this thing down twice now, and I don't know how the heck they're getting this thing back up, to be honest. But they are selling points. Well, not just specific to Ulta, but they had a ton for, it was all local. And this is local to where I live, like where we live, Ulta. This is a group that's in Lake Villa. They're working out of Lake Villa. So it's it's interesting. This is one that was very rare, and this is actually what I created this account for, which is why I had to add so much to him. They talked a lot about baking and some other things in here too, and I tried to give him a backstop for like he likes baking, and I don't know for whatever answer. I think if you join the group too, yeah, they don't. I doubt I'll get in now, but they bounced me out before. But like this stuff, this is the interesting stuff for OSINT. And unfortunately, it didn't pay off at all. I have no idea who this threat actor is, and the intel that I got from getting in there was not very fruitful for Ulta. One other thing too, I will recommend to you guys that really do get into some of this OSINT, and this goes for those really crappy things that you see online. And I'm going to just flat out say any type of child pornography, human trafficking, exploitation, any of that stuff that people don't look safe. Get that into law enforcement's hands. If you're not sure where to get it to me, and I will get it into someone that can use it. But if you find other stuff and you are working in the space, hand it out to other companies. If you find other company stuff, a lot of times they'll just say thanks, cool. It's because this stuff happens so much. But get into a sharing mentality, because I know that this is kind of probably cliche. The protect is one. But it really is how it is. If you don't share the stuff that you find, and this is why Oath is a perfect example of this. He works for Cisco, and he listened to other talks for other companies' brands and their kind of stuff. He's not agnostic. He wants to see it all, because sharing this type of data makes everyone better. It's not just about an individual, or hey, I figured this out because I'm so good at open source intelligence, or I'm the best hacker on the planet and I created this cool script. Share your stuff. That's the biggest thing I can tell you guys. What else? I know we ran over drastically. It's 11:15.
No, this is good information, and when we have good sessions, we definitely run over. So don't feel bad about that. I do want to add a couple of things. So I know we went down the path as far as looking for that particular phrase, and since we're not in person, we can't see what everyone's doing, and then even the image. But the reason why things like this are important is because I did have a chance to attend a session from another individual that went down tracking people from Facebook, and it was so tedious as far as, because this was actual missing person, families looking for. I mean, just to look at pictures and look at symbols in pictures and do the research to say, okay, what does this actually mean? If there's a emoji, there's a phrase, let us get bread. They try to research that, because that could lead to a possible lead to, okay, where is this person at? Or a friend of a friend, and reverse imaging. So I know it's like, oh, well, is this tedious, and why do I need to look for this, or what's the value of it? The value of it is that, being that detective, and I saw it, full force as far as trying to find a missing person, to look at the little bitty things in their social media and see how that went to something else. And it's just a whole spider web, as he mentioned. While I'm searching for that, is anything else? Any more questions for Nick?
Yeah, sorry. I feel like I just talked all night. So if it was awful, let me know.
No, it was good. It was very good. I learned a lot as well.